Hello, everyone. Hi, Greg. How are you?
Hey, how are you? I'm good. And yourself?
Okay, perfect. So today we meet to learn about some advanced tool to boost your Angular productivity. I am right?
Correct. It's been a tool I've been working on with a couple of people for some time. So today is like sort of like a silent watch of it. So I hope people are excited.
Perfect. Okay, so we can start. The stage is yours.
Okay, perfect. Hey, so let me introduce myself a little bit quickly. So my name is Greg, and I'm an Angular expert, developer, principal, whatever you can call it. I'm going to be speaking on NG Poland as well, but more on that later on. And today I wanted to show you the tool we've been working on, and it's been proving to help our developers to gain like an order of magnitude, which is like 10 times better development experience as well as a coding. So hopefully you're here to hear more about it. I just only have one organizational question. Can people sort of like ask question and you will ask me in the middle, or how do we do this? You're muted. You're muted. We cannot hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can hear me. Yeah, of course. People can ask you a question using the YouTube channel. So yeah, not a problem.
Okay, awesome. Because I'm not on YouTube at the moment, so can you actually have a look and then just ask a question when someone appears, or should I?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, so let's get started. I'm gonna share my screen and then you can see for yourself. Okay, so the tool that I'm gonna be looking this way. So the tool we actually launching is called Lowgular, just like the name of the company I'm working for. But in general, this whole thing started a long time ago when we were like thinking about performance of the developers per se, and we were trying to also create like a career paths and sort of like a roadmap for the developer, what he needs to learn in order to consider himself to be a good developer or senior developer. And we've put a lot of thoughts into the model, and now we're actually gonna present it for you as a tool. So first of all, it's free of charge. You can use it yourself. And yeah, hopefully you're gonna like it. And if you don't like it, it's also fine. Let me know what you think. That's the most important part. So I would expect you guys to actually ask some questions and state some sort of, some opinion about it. That would be lovely. And the feedback is welcome. Okay, so what you can do is to actually head into lowgular.github.io/extension-documentation. And then you will see the site as I'm seeing now. Here is how you can actually get in touch with us as well. But in general, this is like the start of the documentation. So our promise is to really make a better Angular apps faster. What does it mean? Well, you make better apps because the tool that you can configure yourself helps you keep your architecture in sync. We spoke to so many developers, and they all say the same thing. Like really, like there is really two areas in which a lot of people struggle. Once they actually learn the basics, like the forms and Rxjs and generally like Angular, then you approach like this middle stage and senior stage where you actually start recognizing that there's a problem with architecture. So you will see that starting with a basic things like the folder structure or naming convention, like basic stuff, to more advanced stuff like coupling and cohesion and how to connect things together. So I would like to actually ask you guys to write on the channel, on the YouTube channel, what are your main concerns where you actually work with Angular, like a medium to large apps? What is the biggest problem for you guys? Like, where do you struggle the most? I'm curious to hear that, because then we can solve it for you, maybe, hopefully. Okay, so the better part. is really tool allows you to pre-configure some of the rules that everyone in your team and everyone in your organization will follow. So it's pretty cool. So think about it like think about it like an exosuit. Exosuit is, I don't know if everyone like played a Call of Duty game and stuff like this. There was one with Advanced Warfare in which, you know, a soldier could put like an exosuit and then he runs faster, he can jump, he can get the boost, you know, he can, all this stuff helps you actually perform better. So it's sort of like this. So when you actually get into the plugin or extension, you will see the productivity boost, because the extension removes things that are require you have a cognitive load, but they're not really important for building the apps. Things like, I don't know, Angular modules, right? Do we think about it? Well, not always, right? Very often we just put everything to app module, or we create like a for root for our services. It's just because I want to get it work, right? But it's not a good practice. It's not a good practice to do so. So obviously this whole movement to standalone components and so on is pretty cool. But in general, you know, you still have to think about it somehow. And Lowgular helps you with it. And then there is also the faster development. So we started with like a very, very simple idea. It's really simple. It's a right click. All you have to do is to right click in specific places. And there are two places you can actually do so. You can do it on the project tree, or you can do it in the editor. So whatever works for you, but generally you just right click and get to the Lowgular icon, and then you will have only like 2 or 3 options, and the rest will actually start to, you know, get smarter for you. Okay, and it's faster to do that than write the code. So it's pretty cool. And then it's also extensible. This is something we actually, you know, our story starts some time ago when we were thinking, let's do like a schematics, right? Angular schematics, Angular CLI, and we all know like NX console, which is a great tool. But it was lacking a lot of things for me, actually. So it was like, I wanted to build a tool to make myself more productive. Then other people start to look at it and they say, well, it's a great idea. I also want to use it. And that's how we created this like small community of people who actually were constantly using it and giving feedback to us. And then we could actually give this to you. So one of the requests that was coming all the time was extensions. So the tool needs to be customizable and extensible, which is not really the case for schematics or NX console. It's because I cannot define the entities I want to create. Entity could be a component, guard, and so on. That's already predefined for me from the Angular suite, and Angular CLI already has it. But the problem is I want to create something like, I don't know, maybe a state, right? And obviously I could install NGRX or NGXS on top of it, and it will have its own schematics, which is great. But maybe I want to use Rxjs subjects, you know, and I cannot really do it. I cannot, first of all, modify the files that has been already created. So it's only code generation in a sense of creating new files. But that's not very handful, because what I would like to do is to modify my files as well. Or I would like to inject an action or make some action with my class, and it will have an effect on all the connected stuff. And it's not really possible, or it's very hard to achieve using schematics. And one of the things was like, I have different suffix names. For example, maybe something like a page component, right? Someone comes in and says, you know, there is a smart component and a presentational component. And now what? You know, like, how do I create both? I mean, there's 2 different entities. One of it really gets the data and displays that, and the other one actually presents the data, and that's it. It doesn't connect to any data source. I mean, it has inputs and outputs, but that's it, really, you know, an ng content, like a content projection. So what can we do instead is to actually build like a tool that will allow you to specify what you want to create, and your imagination is the limit, and that's it, you know. And that's really, really helpful, because, you know, as I mentioned, you go to one company, they call same thing but different, and this company, they call it differently, but it's really the same thing. So this is why actually we don't want to limit you into forcing you into thinking in a specific architecture. We want to give you a tool that I'm going to call now architecture as a code. What it means, you know, maybe some of you guys are familiar with things like infrastructure as a code. which comes from the DevOps environment. Generally, there is something that we created called architecture as a code. What it means that I can configure my architectural rules into a config file, and that config file will help me develop according to that architecture. So I will no longer be able to inject things from different layers or from modules that I'm not allowed to, because the system will propose only the options that are actually suitable for my current situation and according to the predefined architectures. So that's pretty cool. This is a big game changer for a lot of us, because it's not fun to debug the code and realize that, I don't know, maybe there was a missing subscription somewhere down the road, or that I have a circle of dependencies, or maybe that I have a spaghetti code. And the tool actually prevents me from doing that. So that's pretty cool. I mean, how many times you open an NX dep graph and you realize circle of dependencies? Why didn't anyone think about it before? Well, because they didn't use the tool. So that's one of the reasons, or maybe they didn't know. So yeah. So let's get into it. But before that, I would like to just briefly have a look if there is a question. I will just do it on my phone, sorry. It's a good time to ask a question. Sure. Okay. So far, no questions, but guys, just shoot it up. Where does company name Lowgular come from? That's a very interesting question. Yeah, I'm gonna just tell you, like, it's sort of a combination of low code and Angular. So it's a Lowgular, pretty much. Okay, let's get into it. So what do we have? Well, when we click the 3-minute tutorial, this is this page. All you have to do is, the VS Code is coming very soon, so we're gonna use IntelliJ, WebStorm really, and then you will see that all you have to do is to first download the plugin, and then you have different actions, and I'm gonna show it to you in a second. So let's get into it. So I have my WebStorm prepared. So all you have to do is to go to settings. I mean, I don't expect you to do it now, I'm just showing you. And then in here, you just type in Angular or Angular, whatever. And then scroll down and look for the L icon. Okay, here it is. And then all you do, you have to install it. The current version is 9.0, which I'm using as well. Okay, so what are we gonna be building? So we will be building an app like this. I know it's not super sexy, but it can be done in so many different ways. So we're gonna be building the app, but before we actually dive into it, I feel like we should discuss a very basic features of Angular. So when you in the documentation, I give you a very rough overview. So we're still making it, it's still super beta stage. So, just be a little bit patient with us here. But generally there is a configuration part, the infrastructure, the architecture as a code, the stuff I mentioned. There's a lot of configuration and a lot of explanation. There are features in where you can see the videos on our YouTube channel, and then you can play them and see how it's actually being created. So if you don't follow it very closely, and obviously not everything is filled. And then, it has the videos. We're gonna fill it up with more documentation. So there's a lot of set of features. And also very last but not least is the recipes. A lot of people wanted this. So first of all is the starter kit. That's very important. And then also the architectures with the architectural reviews. And I've created like a 5 different architectures here that you can actually to show you the power of Lowgular. And what we're going to be doing now for the first part, we're going to be building, I'm going to show you the features first, and then we're going to be using this architecture, which is the default one when you install the Lowgular. So generally, think about it this way. You have a component, which is Angular component, and then you have a service, and the service can inject HTTP client from Angular common HTTP package. And then to connect the two layers, you will use the model, which is the interface. So a typical, we call it CMS architecture, component model service, in which it pretty much looks like this. So let's get started. Since I already have it installed, oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, what you can do is to go to our GitHub and download the starter kit. I think it's also in the documentation. Yeah, so you can get to the starter kit, and then we have two types. One is the Angular CLI, and one is the NX monorepo. I'm going to use the NX monorepo because I love it. I love the tool, and also because I'm going to show you some interesting features that are a little bit more advanced, but I'll start simple. So you can click here and then just clone it. I would appreciate if you actually star it as well, or you can just fork it. So yeah, when you get that, please have a look. I already have it prepared for me. Just check. I open the newly created folder. Yeah, so it will hit you with the documentation and all the stuff you can read, but you don't need it for now. Okay, so let's get started. What do we need to do? Let's say I wanna, I don't know, maybe show a list or do something like this. So first thing you need to see that there is no configuration file called coding-standards.json. The reason why it's not here is because it's just loading the default one, the one I mentioned. So in the default config, you will only create things in the apps. So I don't know if you know, but generally when you open your Angular JSON file, you will see projects. And the projects is really something you can organize a code around, right? So we have two types of projects. One is the app and another is the library. We're gonna talk about the libraries just in a second, but let's focus on the apps first. So I'm not sure. Yeah, okay. So on the apps, we have one app called app, pretty much not very, interesting name. And there's also app end-to-end, which is a default way of actually doing things in, it's a Cypress setup with tests for my app. So don't mind it for now, it's the default way how NX works. So when I navigate to the app, and then I will see pretty much an empty app here, right? So what I have is like the router module, I have a router outlet, put it in here. I already have Angular material installed with all the stuff, just to show you. And that's it really. Okay, so if I wanna create something, right? I could use like maybe an NX console or schematics and just generate it from here. By the way, it's actually already here. You can create it, but you see, the problem is I will not be able to tell in what folder is created. So for example, I would have to make it a common company standard and tell this to everyone and have a meeting, and that costs a lot of money and a lot of effort to do a simple thing. So unless someone intelligently can figure it out and look at the folder structure of the rest of the things, I might have a lot of mess, right? Because it's freely, you can do whatever you want, right? I mean, I can create all kinds of folders and just decide it's gonna be like this. And working with so many different clients for my last 15 years, I say that when I open the app folder, I will see, first of all, I will see components, then I will see services, then maybe I wanna see models. And then things go sideways. Then I start seeing things like auth for its authorization, so login, register, and so on. And it doesn't make sense to me. Why did you create the auth folder there? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, because if you create the layers like components, services, models, I don't know, resolvers, guards, so on. So why do you suddenly put auth? And auth, I have another components, guards, and so on. So it's not consistent, right? And this is where people actually struggle a lot. So one of the things I really want to keep in sync all the time is to organize my code the same way. So I have a common standard, not only for me, but also for my colleagues. So what I can do is, let's say I want to create a model. Let's start with the model. So what's happening is, you see the L logo. So I can create the library. I'm not going to do it for now. I'm going to show you the create new. So what can happen here is I create new, and now it will read my configuration file, and it will say, hey, you can create component and the model. So obviously I can see a service is missing. So what I can do in this situation is to just download it from the documentation and create the file. So I'm going to show it to you. A new file. Okay, and it's a comprehensive documentation. Everything is in there. I actually put it up today. So I'm gonna go in a second. Okay, so we go to create new, and now you see it reads my configuration from the file. So in the default one, I didn't have a service, but in this one I do have. So you see, this is the power of it. Like I can, let's say I'm an architect, or maybe a team lead, or maybe I'm just curious developer who wants to introduce a new thing. All I have to do is to discuss with my team and explain them what is it and what is this entity and what does it do. And I can add it to the configuration file, and bang, it's here and everyone can use it. And it's so easy. So it's pretty cool. So let's just maybe start with the model, right? So I have a model. It will ask me what is the model name, and let's just say, I don't know, maybe I create the users, right? So I have a user model, and now I can put on the comma separated values like ID and email. Okay, so it created, and you see it already created in the models. The reason why is because I set it up to be like this. I didn't have to. I could choose any other name, and I could also choose any other suffix. And the suffix is something that gets added according to the Angular coding style, which is the after the dot, right? So user dot model as well as user model suffixed here. This is something you cannot really do with any other tool. Which is pretty cool. And one thing very important we try to do as well is you don't have to worry so much about the good case practices. We actually do it for you. So one thing you might notice is the read-only here. Like, how many of you actually use read-only? How many of you, maybe the ones who didn't work with me before, were considering the read-only? So the read-only is really important, is because, you know, in JavaScript, everything is passed by reference, and it means that you can change things, and you can pretty much, let's say this model goes, maybe stores in a state or something like this, and then it goes into the component. When someone changed that inside the component for you, or maybe some component down the road, you're going to be in trouble, because it's going to update it everywhere in application. So this is why I use the read-only. I know read-only is only the syntax on TypeScript, and in real world, it doesn't go into the JavaScript. But idea is you want to prevent developers from making a mess, right? So this is one of the good case practices. Okay, so when I have the user model and it's created for me and it's exported interface, and why is it an interface? Because I chose the data structure here. And it's pretty cool. And also I say that it's created inside the app, just like I wanted. Okay, so let's create a service. So we go in here again and we create the service. And I know a lot of you would be copy pasting things, but you know, copy pasting is not good. It creates a lot of things like typos, bad naming convention. And if there is one problem with the programming, is how you name things. Not sure if I overslept and spoke too much. Oops, see, today is it's probably not the best day for me for the presentation, apparently. Just give me a brief sec. Not so good. Okay, let me just check what happened. Sorry for the interruptions. In the meantime, you can ask questions and see what's happening. Yeah, sorry. I will restart it. Yeah, it's still super early stage, so sorry for interruptions. Yeah, sorry. I had to restart it. For whatever reason, I had some connection problems. So let's try again. So I will go ahead and create the service. Okay, so it asked me what is the name. Let's say I like to prefix it with the medium or how I actually connect. So if it's a service that fetches the data from GraphQL, I would use the GraphQL prefix. Or if it's let's say HTTP, I will use the HTTP. If it's Firebase, I will prefix it with Firebase. But this is my personal preference. So I want to create HTTP users. Okay, I get the done message, and the same thing. It created in the users in the services folder because it's predefined like this. So what do we know now? So obviously, for now, it's super basic. It might seem super basic to you, but bear with me for a little bit later. So one good case practices is that I don't create it inside the for root. I know a lot of people like this, but I don't quite like it because I cannot use the feature flags. I cannot turn on and turn off the things easily because it's in the root anyway. So that's not the best way for me. So what we do is we actually create a module. So what's up with the modules? Well, the modules, we like to create modules for everything in Agile is because, again, it's like the name says, it's modular, right? So I can easily swap it. So if I create another service, let's say a GraphQL service, it's gonna have the same sort of an interface like this service. It's just that I'm gonna just swap the modules inside my app module and things will work. I will just replace completely the way how we communicate. So in the service module, it's because it appends the name of the suffix and dash module. It will create as well, it will provide that service for me. So it's pretty cool, also allows me to maybe instantiate that service only once. I know services are really stateless, but you know, when we get to like subjects and stuff, it can get complex. Okay. So I have the HTTP user service module. Why is it here? I'm going to show you what are the cool things around it later. Okay, so I have my injectable and HTTP service, and what I could do now, like I would like to actually inject HTTP client in it, right? So if I go to my configuration, I will see a section called external. And in here, I can specify all the external things. What is external? Like a NPM package I install. Like if you really think about it, Angular common HTTP is just a package. It could be a GraphQL client in here, or Apollo, or whatever, you know. But I can add externals, and then I can configure it in my entity relations. So the way it works is that I have a service and HTTP, and I say it should be in the constructor. So that's pretty cool, because now when I head into my service and I right click in the editor and go to a logo, the actions, I will see options I have. And one of them is inject. This is a very powerful feature because it allows me, and now it will actually go to my coding standards file and say, oh, you can only do HTTP client. For now, I'm just showcasing the features, but eventually we will go to a lot more advanced stuff. And so I just want you to bear with me and follow up with all the train of thoughts I'm having. But in the end, we're going to reserve the maybe 20 minutes to build the entire app, like in one go using hexagonal architecture. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I have my HTTP user service with injected HTTP client. Yeah, Greg, I could write this myself. Well, yes, of course, because it's a simple example. But if you have 100 services, or if you have 3 layers, 4 layers, what if you inject HTTP client inside the component? Would that be cool? Probably not, because you cannot really reuse it. So if I have an architecture like service and component, then my HTTP client should only be here. How many times? How cool would it be if everyone followed that pattern? Like you would now have HTTP clients in a component, and that's a pain sometimes. Okay, what can I do next? Well, what I can do is again click the right click here, and then I can add a method. So let's say I want to get all users, and then there is no parameter really. And then you see the user model appears on the list. Can you still hear me? Because I think my camera stopped. But I believe you can. Okay, so the user model comes up. So I can choose if I want single one or multi one, or I can choose one of the primitive types or avoid. So I want to go with a user model, and everything is done and fine. Okay, so now I have a method. Of course, I could write this myself. This is not the point. And I'm going to show you some features when it actually comes very handy. But in general, think about it this way, that you can agree with your colleagues that you shouldn't really put a model from totally another layer in here, and it's just going to work. So I could also write the return and so on and so on, or again, I can use the right click. So you see, like I'm not really typing code, I'm just sort of specifying it. And now a new feature comes up called Rxjs Call. And Rxjs is one of the reasons why Angular is not so popular as opposed to other frameworks, is because it's just hard, right? Some people don't even get the promises right and try to get observables. So it's really, really hard. And I saw it over and over again. People do subscribe and say they don't understand the switch map and so on. So this is why it comes with tooling. So here we go. I want to go with Rxjs Call just because I'm inside the method. And now it says, okay, from where to get the data? Obviously from HTTP client and then from the get method. Okay, so look what's happening. So what really happens now is he can say, okay, so you're in a method that should return an observable, and then you actually call another observable. So I know I should return things. So this is pretty cool. And then it also tried to guess like the most accurate mapping function. I will not need it for now, and I'm gonna get to it a little bit later. And then all you wanna do is also provide like some URL. Okay, I'll get some users from some URL, right? I mean, I don't have an API for this example stopped, so. But you see, and it still complains about it because obviously there is a generic type and I can just use the user model array. Okay. So that's still pretty basic, but at least, you know, it forces me to not do the, not to worry about the return types and so on. It also does a little bit of a logic for me. And then what it also does is it gives me nice access to the API. You know, like maybe I don't remember what is it, and you know how normally you do it. You open this file, doesn't make any sense. There is tons of overloads. It's like you have to look at documentation. You go on Stack Overflow, and then you probably get a terrible answer. So in general, we try to limit your focus to not go out from actually the working, like don't focus on, you know, outside the editor, like just stay here. And obviously I could also do it with the auto completion, which is perfectly fine. But there are some benefits I'm getting them. Okay, but let me finish the example. So I have my injectable and I have my method. So what I can do now is I can create a component. So here we go. Let's say I want to call a users list component. And then you see it created the 3 files. And then when I open it, it creates this configuration. And you might be saying, whoa, 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 what do you do, Greg? Like, this is not cool. Like, it's weird, you know? Where are my styles? But I personally prefer a design system, so I don't like the component styles, but this is only the preference. You can do whatever you want. So what you can do is to open your coding standards and then put it in here. And then I have configuration saying I should not have any styles. And I like the view encapsulation none, and obviously generate the selector for me from the prefix, and then push the, put the on push strategy. You can change that. You can do whatever you want. And now a lot of people say, like, why don't you ask a user when you actually create the component? Well, the reason is because I want to be consistent. I want to be every model or every component be written the same way. Why do I need to let him choose? I mean, obviously I can change it once I generated it, but I would like to have a set of defaults that are the same no matter what. So this is why I prefer to have it in the global config, and then you can change it as you go. Okay, so what can I do next? Well, obviously, if you don't know what to do and you might be a little bit lost, all you have to do is to keep calm and right click. So you click in here and you get set of options. That's pretty cool. So one of them is, again, the inject. I am in a smart component. I consider this to be a smart component. I mean, it's a users list. It's not just a list. It's not mat list. It's a users list. It has some domain meaning. So let me just inject it. Let me inject the service. You see, he's smart. He can figure it out. He can say, hey, you know, you can only do the service. There's no HTTP client in here. Okay, so we can click it. And then everything is fine. I can rest assured. Okay, so I have my service injected. That's pretty cool. And then a lot of people would just, you know, do some weird stuff, like maybe have on in it with subscribe on it or whatever. I prefer good case practices. So there is no option for this for now. So what I can do is, again, just look what system gives me. And one of them is Rxjs property. So I had Rxjs Call that you saw, but now I want to create a property in which I'm going to have my users. So I can just select that, and I'm going to say, well, this is a users. And now he asked me, okay, what do you actually try to do? Are you trying to do the subject or the observable? Well, I'm trying to get the observable. So I'm going to choose that option. And then, okay, where you want to get it from? Well, I want to get it from HTTP users, and the get all method, that's the only thing I have. So it will actually parse methods that are returning the observables. Let me demonstrate this a little bit. Now I'm gonna just type it. It doesn't really matter. I say no observable, and let's say it returns void. So it doesn't really do anything. And then when I get into the component, and you know, I want to be reactive, right? I want to use only reactive things. So when I get here and I say test, and then I want to return the observable from where you want to get it. I want to get it from HTTP, and it's not on the list. So the system doesn't allow me. It's because I chose Rxjs property, not a property in general. And it would be the same even if I return a string or whatever. Okay, so I have my property. That's pretty cool. And this is also a very nice way to do so, like not to do it like inside the constructor or on init and so on. Actually, I can just access it directly here. One interesting thing is it also takes care of the, like, explicitly let me know what is the type, and also adds the dollar to the property name. Is because it's a convention from Rxjs in which you should use all observables should be marked with the dollar. But obviously, if you don't like it, you can change it yourself. I like that default. Okay, so what do we have left? So I would like to output this data somehow. How can I do it? Well, I can navigate to the users list component. And again, obviously, I can start writing some HTML. All I can do is, again, click the actions button. So when I get here, look at what I have. I have add HTML and add layout. Okay, let me start with the add layout. What is it? And you see, it's predefined layout. So this is really a design system that comes into the play. So I can predefine templates that are very often used in the application. And then this is using the Angular materials. So I have mat card, mat toolbar, stepper, tabs, you know, you name it. Let's say I would like to output a card. It doesn't really matter. And here we go. I get the template. So you see, I don't have to now go to the documentation and check it out for myself. I could have someone in my team prepare all the templates for me. It could be my presentation component, and then just have it here. And then the chances of mistakes are very low. So that's pretty cool. But you know, you can also set up the snippet. So it's not very smart, you would say, right? But what you can do instead, you can navigate to actions and then choose the add HTML. Probably in the future, it's going to be called add template. So generally, you want to add HTML, and now look at what happened. He is smart enough to figure it out that there is an observable that returns an array. And that's something our system is particularly interested in, because he can guess that you actually want to output some sort of a list. So what you can happen is I say, yeah, sure, that's the users. I want to do that. And then how did it know? Look, the templates are totally different. Now I have a list-like template. So I have a list, a navbar, chip list, accordion, grid list, menu, select, radio button, checkbox. It's really a group, right? So generally, you see, it can figure this stuff out. So here we go. We output things. What did it do? So it created a template that I can predefine myself, and then it created the ng4 with the async. It's because the type of the property is observable, so it's smart enough to figure it out that you actually can use async on it. So that's pretty cool. So what would happen if I actually want to launch this application right now? Obviously, I will not see anything because it's not on any route or anywhere added, but even if it were, what would happen? I would get an error, right? It would say, look, dude, you cannot do it. You cannot do it because you're missing the module. So I'm definitely missing a common module here. And I'm missing things like the material list module. You know, I'm missing a bunch of things. And now I get the error. I look it up in Google. I go to Stack Overflow, and then I only to figure it out that I'm missing that module, right? And obviously, eventually, if you do it more and more times over the time, like over the years, you learn that you're actually missing that module. You only see the error, and you're already trained for it, right? But you see, for young colleagues, that's a big problem, you know, this whole Googling and stuff. This is why a junior developer takes so much time to write simple stuff, is because he doesn't know this. He doesn't know that ng4 is in a common module or the async is in a common module. He doesn't know these things. So he needs to face those errors like R3 injector, or maybe like user list component is not part of any module, blah, 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 kind of things, yeah? But not in Lowgular. Remember, in Lowgular, you don't have to worry about it. So you see, I have a component, and then I have a component module. It's called scam module. Eventually, it's going to move to standalone modules. But in general, think about it, there's the scam module, and look it up. It already outputted the modules for me. How cool is that? I mean, think about it, how much time you would need. And whatever, you see, it's because previously I've chosen the math card. Obviously, I deleted it eventually afterwards. That's why it's also added the math card for me. And now I have math list and common module. So technically, my application is working, and you will not get any errors. And here we go into a lot of like talks with different people who can say, oh yeah, I know my camera is frozen. I'm sorry for this. I hope you can hear me well. Just give me a feedback on a chat. Okay, so now we can get in the discussion. Yeah, but shouldn't developers know it? Well, ask Remix developers or ask any other types of developers who don't need to worry about those things. I mean, I don't think you need to know those things. I mean, even if you look at the whole direction in where the Angular framework is going and the other frameworks as well, like actually they want you to focus more on code and less on configuration and less on understanding the modules even. Like ideally, Angular would go totally to ECMAScript modules all the way. This is the whole movement towards the standalone. So you see, developers don't want to think about those things. They want to focus on building great products. They don't want to focus on the fact that there is some Rx or some injector error, right? Or module or whatever, you know. They don't want to know this stuff. They want to focus on the meat and bones of the software. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is already here. So I have my component, I have my module, and for the sake of like, because it's not really connected to any users, let me just create a fake stuff. So it's an array, and then I will have an ID of one. Did I create it as? Yeah, so it's a number and email. All right. So let's get to the service. So it's a 1, and then email, which is email@gmail.com. All right, so I only have one user. So now what I would need to do is to actually, you know, connect those things together. So I would like to add it to the route. So what I can do is I can right click an action. I believe it's here, add to route. So on which route you want to add it, I'm just going to give empty route, which is the root route. Okay. And look, the files light up. It's because what it did, okay, it figured it out. It added the user list module, the user list component, but not all of it. Look at this, what it did. It actually added the component module that is related to that list component. That's pretty cool. Like no more running around and trying to figure it out. And it also added all its dependencies. This is really, really cool because again, you would get the injector problem, and it's also added in the optimal place, which is obviously in this situation app routing. But if I had it into some other modules, it would add it there. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's see. Maybe I missed something, but you know, let's just have a look. Dun, dun, dun. In the meantime, I check the question. The feature, nice. The idea is great. I like it. What happens when you have too much stuff for a given context? Yes, we do have a scroll, and we even have a search. So you can search for things. I'm going to show it in the hexagonal example. All right. So let me show it to you. Okay, I got the list, and it's already a math list, and it works. Wow. What? Say what? But it's object. Why is it object? Well, obviously, it's because I didn't say what to do inside the list, but it was planned. Don't worry about it. So it's because in here it outputted stuff. So now I can say, okay, I just want to add the email. Bang. Spot on. So that's more or less the basics of Lowgular. Let's dive a little bit deeper. So one extra thing, let me see. So I have a question, which is a great question, which says, does it matter what I click in the folder? Well, actually, no. And this is great thing about it. Because, you know, if I use things like, let's say I have this folder structure that I have predefined, like app component, and then, oh, I didn't also mention it. So I have things like the users list. Why is it users list here? And here I don't have it in the subsequent folder. The reason is, it's because I set it up this way. So if I go here into the folder, you see this token called $name$. This means it actually took what I wrote and made the kebab case of it, right? So, and then it also says, you know, replace that token with the name you've put in as a dashed, sorry, like the kebab case, right? So this is why it created user.list in here. Now, does it matter if I click here or here or here? No, and this is the great thing about it, because I consider, this is why I have like, this is why I have inside of app or inside of library, which I'm gonna show you in a second. An idea is you don't want to create things in different folders. I'll give you an example. I'm just gonna use this schematic that is already predefined, and I'm gonna say component, and I'm gonna say whatever, doesn't matter, show test. Okay, you see, yeah, except that you know, we always get these weird things, it can't figure it out, which is terrible experience. So if I go here and I say component and I say test, and then I add the skip import. Yeah, so you see it generated, but it generated it inside. This is violation of my architecture rules. I want to have architecture as a code. So I want to code where things should go, period. So you see, this is not very good. Because, you know, it creates some dance, not supporting the modules. And you see, I even had to put some extra stuff. I mean, I don't hate it. I actually like this tool. It was really great, but I think we're ready for next generation. So, okay. You see, even if I click here and let's say I want to create a new component and I call it, again, the test. The system is smart enough to actually do it in the right place. Now, let me show you, maybe some of you might wonder, what if I click outside? If I click here, what would happen? You see, it will ask me which project you want to create it. So I want to create it in the app, and then the component, and then call it test again. Or look, I can even do test again like this. Oh, sorry, typo. And then it will do like, it will still not let me do the math. That's super cool. I hope that answers the question. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah, the extra features, the more advanced features. So let's get into it. So let's say, let me just delete it. So let's say I would like to actually create a form, right? We all know forms, they are super nice, not. I mean, which form should I do, you know? And then you go and you see a mix of reactive forms with template form and ng module in the reactive form and whatnot, and people do all sorts of hacks. It's because reading documentation is not easy, and reading Angular documentation is also not very easy. Especially not easy because there's a lot of information in there, and then you just don't know, and then you have so many ways of doing things, which makes framework great, but the experience of learning it is not very great. So this is why we simplify things for you. Again, you don't have to worry about how things, what are the good case practices. Let's say, you know, like it just happened now, Angular comes up with a new set of APIs. We're already going to incorporate it for you. You don't have to worry about it. And we're also going to make your migration easier, but that's coming in the next versions. Okay, so what I can do? Well, again, keep calm and right click. Everything is under control. So we go, form property. Yeah, I want to get the form. How want to call it? Well, let's say I want to create user form or something like that, or register form. Here we go. Okay, now it will ask me what kind of fields you want to add. Let's say I want to add a name, or let's say a first name, last name, and email. Okay. Boom. And here we go. I got the form. I got the form up and running in no time. This is pretty cool. So you see, it created first name with form control and the last name and the email. And now I can fill it up and add the validators or do whatever I want. And now check it out. I can go inside the function and I want to add a form here. So what I can do is right click, action, and then I want to add HTML because it's sort of a dynamic part. And look at this, register form appeared, as well as a list, but also the register form appeared. So what I can do, I select it. And then which template you want to use? Well, I have only mat form, so I'm going to choose this one. And check it out. I got the form, but look at the amount of HTML. This is pretty cool. So I have a form. It's already assigned the proper variable that I've chosen. It already created the ng submit. Admit it. How many of you do they click on the button? Don't do this. You have ng submit for it. And then it already passes the form instance into the function, which is pretty cool, pretty neat. You can also do the event if you want. And then this is what I already predefined in my design template. You can do it whatever you want. And look, it already has a validation and the first name. But if you download the starter kit, you're going to get that too. You can modify it. You can add whatever you want. It's all in HTML templates, JSON, and eventually it's going to move to the like a files, like HTML files as well. But generally, it's pretty simple, but yet powerful. So I get my mat form and I get everything set up. So what I need to do now? Well, I need to add this handling and so on. So I go in. Lowgular already did it for me. That's pretty cool. How did it know? And it also follows the very nice code convention, which is on something happened, on register form submitted. You can configure that though. So I prefer it this way. And now what we can do, we can say if this register form invalid, then maybe you can show some alert. And you can also return, which means you don't want to continue. So that's pretty cool. And then what can we else do? Well, imagine we can have a function in the user service. So obviously this is no observable, but maybe we can create a new one. Let's just say I create a action and I say add method. And then I say it's a create user method. And then it will take a parameter. It will take, now don't do the form. You shouldn't do it. Ideally, you would do the model. So you can see the user, which is a user model. And then I want to keep it as void, right? Okay, so I have my create user method, and in here I would make a call to my API to actually do it, right? But for now, I can just return a void, just for now. Okay, so I have this one set up, and now I can go to my users list in the right place, and I can right-click actions, and again, Rxjs call, because I want to call Rxjs, and then where? This one. Which one? Create the user. And check it out. Look how smart it is. So it knows I'm in a void function, so I don't actually return anything. And it knows this is an observable, so I don't return it. And it automatically subscribes. That's pretty cool. So obviously I could do take one or whatever, but generally it can figure it out that I'm an observable. So actually I should subscribe to it. Raise your hand or shout whenever you need to forgot subscribe and the formula was not working or whatever call was not working because you forgot to subscribe. Simple stuff. Yet Lowgular doesn't let you do it. helps you to actually maintain this. And then it can also figure it out that because I chose a user model, so it already spread it out for me. So the mapping became a lot easier. All I have to do is to fill up the undefined part. Obviously, I don't want to create the ID. This was my mistake, sorry. What I can do is to use the omit, which is the very handy JavaScript utility class, type. And then I want to say omit the ID from it. So yeah, you don't want that. And then in the email, I want to take that from the form. So I say register form. I do it the old way. In a new type form, you can use the controls. Actually, maybe I do it. Yeah, and then I say, email dot value. Yeah, and it's it, and that's it, and it's here and it's working. And now, of course, when I launch it, things will not work. Why? Because I forgot the reactive forms, right? But not in Lowgular. It already understands you need reactive forms because you have a form group in your template. And it also knows that your material field module should be there because it's part of a template as well as the input and the button. So let's have a look if it actually works. Sorry, this is not the one I wanted. Yeah, and it's working. And it's working. You see, form is invalid. Don't do that, man. You have to fill it up. And that's being sent. What I can also do in here is to actually, on the successful subscription, what I can do is to reset the form. So what I can do is to say this, register form, reset. Maybe I can show some balloons and confetti. They are pretty awesome recently. Okay. There we go, and it's reset. Obviously, yeah, I need to also reset the state. So that's it, really. This is, let's say, a level 2 of Lowgular. Are you ready to level 3? Yes, Shemel, that's correct. Take 1 is not intended for HTTP call. So now I hope I'm going to surprise you with my next example, where it's actually going to be needed. Okay, so let's go to the documentation and let's go to a little bit more advanced example. You see, maybe I want to create something called an abstraction. An abstraction is something, so I don't know how many of you actually follow things like solid principles, but we really do, and we really care about it a lot. So generally, there is one of my favorite is called dependency inversion, and it's very well shown in this picture. So you see, when you're in this setup, this is a typical injection style. So I have a component that depends on the service, and that depends on HTTP client. So if something breaks in HTTP client, my component will be broken too. That's not cool. We don't like that. We like to be encapsulated and isolated. So what can we do? We can create an abstraction. So my component will depend on an abstraction. I'm gonna call it repository. And my services will also depend on abstractions because it's gonna implement it. So, and all of it is gonna link with the model. And then only the service will depend on HTTP client, not my abstraction, not my component, but only the service. Why is it cool? Because today I have HTTP service, but if tomorrow someone comes in and says, hey man, we're changing to GraphQL. It happened to me, trust me. It's gonna be very painful to do so because I have to go to all those components and replace that service. And then I wish I knew about the repository pattern before. So in the new Lowgular world, you don't have to worry about it because the abstraction is gonna get created for you. And then the service, you just replace the module with the service inside the app and things will work. You simply replace a piece very easily. And also it's super simple and super nice for the testing. And also you can control the amount of like interface that comes into your component. And maybe some services will implement multiple repositories, and then you will not know about it in the component. And it also helps to parallelize the work, because you can now test in isolation this part and test in isolation this part, which is pretty cool. I hope this is sort of understandable. Okay, so let's have a look. What I can do is I can just download it, and then I can go into my coding standards. Yeah, and I replace it. So the only difference is I've added the repository. Repository is just an abstraction, which means it's an interface. And then it will have the repository suffix in the repositories folder, and then it will be created in the app. Okay, so to demonstrate that the best way possible, I'm gonna actually delete that for now. Nah, I'll keep it just for the record, for you to see. I mean, this is not the ideal state. I would actually migrate the old stuff myself. But okay, let's start with the basics. So let's say I want to create a, let's say I want to go with the products now. So you see the repository appears. So I create the product. Oh, maybe not, maybe courses. We're doing courses. So I create a course, and then course has ID of string, doesn't matter. Okay, so now the difference comes in. So let's say I want to create the abstraction. So I'm going to call it repository. And then I'm going to say, let's say, you know, courses repository. Bank. You see, it created the repository form. And look what it also did. It created the injection token for me. Now, normally you would have to Google how to inject repository in, how to inject interface in your Angular app, because it's not possible without this. And then you would have to go and understand what is injection token, how to do this, why is it this is, you know, what's it called? Why is this one unique? So you would create all those things, but you don't have to worry. You can download the Lowgular, and it will do for you. So again, we do the right click and we add the action. Sorry, we add the method, and I call it get all. And then I don't want to put any parameters. And look, you can search for things, as I said, which will filter. It also has a scroll, which is not visible at the moment. Oh, it was now. You see, when I get more options, it will be more visible. And now, obviously, it doesn't understand the semantic that, you know, the courses are related to courses. Ideally, I would create a library around it. But I can also just have a list here. And obviously, I don't want the users. I want the courses. So it can figure this one out too. And then it's adding, great. I have my great looking interface. I can also add like a create course. I can add so many methods, but this is not the point. The point is to demonstrate the repository interface now. So what I can do again is to create the service. And now the cool thing is, so I go into the service, and then I say, so again, let's say GraphQL courses. Okay, so I get my GraphQL courses service, and you see, I mean, this is pretty straightforward as well as this one, but now bear with me. Now the cool stuff is gonna happen. So I go in here, and then I would like to implement that, right? How do I do this? Well, I don't know, but if I don't know, I just right click and select actions, and look, the implement function appeared. This Lowgular is smart. It can understand your intent, and then it will tell, hey, you're in a service. Service can implement the repository. So I give you the implement option. There we go. You do the implementation. You do the courses repository. That's the only option you can choose. And shebang, what happens is, obviously, it also takes care of the imports, which is very neat. And then it added the implement and added all the functions in that interface. Isn't that cool? But hey, if I run this, it will fail. Why? Because I did not provide the token, but not with Lowgular. Lowgular is smart enough to add the token for you. which means as long as you keep using right clicks with Lowgular, you will never have a failing app. You will never have an app that is not working. This is the promise we have, and if it's not the case for you, please submit a GitHub issue on our repository of our documentation, and we're gonna look into your case and help you out. So you see, it added the token. That's pretty neat. This is pretty cool. So, okay, so what can we do now? Well, let's say I would like in my component, I'm not gonna create a new one. I'm just gonna use it here. In here, and I want to inject that in here, right? So what I do, I inject the actions. So I choose the inject action, and then I see the courses repository, because now my coding standard changed. So I cannot directly inject the service because it's no longer allowed. Obviously, I'm in a legacy state. I would have to migrate it first. And then I just say courses repository, which is an abstraction. Okay, I choose it. Let's see what happens. And look, it's smart enough to figure it out that it needs to use the injection token for this type. Now, isn't that cool? I hope you guys have some questions. How many of you have seen injection token before? Here we go. Yes, Damian, that's a great question. We can. So the question was, can we configure Lowgular to actually create a folder for the services as well? Because we can see like it gets really clunky and not so cool in there. Yeah, of course, that's very easy. All you have to do is to go to the service. Let's say you want to do the service, right? So you go to the service, you have a folder structure, and you use the magic token for the name, and that's it. And that will work. So now when I actually right click, create a new service, and I say test, you see it created this in the test repository because this is how I named it. So yes, you can. Okay. So I hope this is pretty cool. We talked about quite a few things, how to actually do those things in Lowgular, what is an abstraction, how can you use it, and so on. But let's talk about one more topic, libraries. So you see, this code is not very optimal. It's because, you see, I created everything in the app, and that's great. This is why this is one of the first two or three really architectures that we have here. But once you move to more advanced ones, maybe already here, let me double check. No, this is still in the app. You can actually choose to create things inside lib folder, which is super handy. So for example, this is CQRS. It's pretty advanced, I know. This is not stuff you see normally. But you see, you might want to do the lib part, right? And then there's sugar on top, hexagonal architecture, which is very advanced, and I'm gonna talk about it on NG Poland. So if you did not buy the tickets, do it now or as soon as you can, and buy the tickets, because I'm gonna be there speaking about this monster right here, which helped us to create enterprise level applications and help us to, you know, create scalable and maintainable applications using the libraries NX and generally the hexagonal architecture. So do it now, buy the ticket, and I hope to see you there. We're also going to have a stand, so come to us and talk. I would love to meet you. I would love to have a chat with you. Yeah, we also going to go with the example of hexagonal architecture. I hope you guys are ready for it. So unless you have any more questions to what just happened, I'm gonna go into it in a second, and I'm gonna show you now how Lowgular, because let's agree, this is a simple example. This is really simple. Now, this is not simple. And one of the promise we have is build better Angular apps, which I hope I already shown you that this is a better app because it manages the modules, it manages the tokens, it does the solid principles and so on. I also shown you that it's extensible, which means you can configure things yourself, which you cannot do in Angular schematics and NX console. But now I didn't talk about the faster development. Obviously, you only saw the small part of it where code gets generated. Yeah, sure. But let's talk how fast is fast. I hope you're ready for it. So if you don't have any questions, keep it for the last moment. And I'm gonna create a list of a list of products. So I have this fake API in which I need to fetch those products and show them on a list, but there's gonna be a twist to it. I'm gonna do it the hexagonal way. Obviously, it's gonna be over engineering for this case, but if you're a guy who really values a really quality software and advanced architectures like we do, I hope you're gonna enjoy it. So now is the time for like the seniors to see really, really cool stuff. Okay, so how can we get this list in our application? Well, first of all, what we have to do, obviously, is to clean up my repo. So let me just clean up all the stuff I've done. Okay, and then, yeah, then this is the repo I showed you. Then I'm gonna go to the hexagonal architecture, recipes, architectures, hexagonal one. We click the button, and then we will add it to the coding standards. Okay, so one thing actually is different in hexagonal architecture is like in this specific configuration is that I have a page which is created in app, and this is a component, but it does not have any styles and it does not have any selector because it's a so-called routable component. Okay, it means I can add it to the route, whereas my smart component, which is a component right here, yeah, it's a lot of things. The smart component is also an Angular component, and it has different config. So it already has a styles, it has emulated, and then it has a generated selector, and it's created in libs, and it's created in this long files, folder structure. Okay, so let's get started. So I want to create let's start with the page, right? So what I want to do is I want to create new, and because I'm in the app and Lowgular understands it, it will only give me the page because that's the only entity I can actually create. So here we go. I want to create a home page, and that's all shebang. It's created in the pages folder, all sounds. I go in here, then I do actions, and then I say add to route. And then I'm going to move it on the normal route. Yeah, okay. And it's here. It's added the home page. You see, it's called page. It's not called component. It's called page. And it doesn't have a selector and no styles. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's get going. So I have my page, but I need to put stuff in my HTML, right? I don't have anything. So let's get going. So first of all, I want to create like a library. So I go to the library. I call it products. There we go. So now in libs, I have products, and it already created everything for me. So it created project JSON. Why? It's because my Angular JSON is version 2. So it's using the standalone setup for NX. But if it was Angular version 1, it would just append it in here in the configuration file. But hey, Lowgular doesn't let you think about it. It helps you with the good case practices. It also set up the linter, and it also set up the Jest testing framework for me. So it's pretty cool. Also, all the TypeScript files, and it created the lib folder. All right, so let's get going. So let's create something called a DTO. A DTO is a model, which is a data transfer object, and I'm going to show it in a second. So I have a product DTO, and I'm going to have an ID of number, as well as a name of my product. And a price, which is maybe price in cents. This is a good case practice to actually use cent values, but okay, let's just keep it simple. Price number. Okay, so you see it already created application port, secondary DTO, product DTO, and every data structure should contain, oh yeah, let me show it to you. Looks like this. Every data structure needs to have a port. So let me create the port. It's called, you see the scroll, beautiful. DTO port, I'm gonna call it gets all products. Okay. So this is the first time I'm actually doing live hexagonal architecture. So that's pretty cool, actually. I hope you're excited as well as I am. That's why I'm going so fast. I'm speaking so fast. Okay, because I want to show you the Lowgular is fast. So here we go, add method, get all, no parameters. Oh, how smart you are. You already know this. That's cool. Okay, here we go. We have nicely looking interface. So let's get back to the screen. So what I do, I created a DTO and DTO port, and it's connected, obviously. And now I want to create the adapter, which is the service. So I want to create a service, and I also have a response object. What is a response object? Well, response object represents this, and this is different than my DTO. It's because when something changed on the backend, I give you an example. The price is maybe in now is in this floating number, but eventually maybe it's in cents, or maybe it has a dollar currency, or maybe it's a string, or maybe, you see, I called it name, but it's called title here. So you see, my contract with the backend is different than what I want to use in my application. This is why I need the DTO, not to affect my application when something changes on the backend. So what I can do is to create my response object. And I also call it product. And then it's going to have ID number, price number, and title, oops, sorry, which is a string. Okay. Okay, it's done. So adapter, secondary services, product response. Yeah, that's cool. Now we go and create a data service. I think it's called service. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to call it HTTP products. Apparently the services are not my thing today. Yeah. I think it must be something with my configuration. Let me just double check that. Because we just upgrade. Oh yeah, I think it should be called. Yeah, we have some. We have errors in configuration. Sorry for that. We need to change that in the documentation. This is why it was not working. Yeah, but luckily, yeah. Three times the charm. Yeah. So I created my service module, everything is intact. So let's inject some things into it. HTTP client, yes, please. Okay, now let's add some implementation. Let's implement the interface. Here we go. Yes, please. Okay, here we go. Everything is nice and sound. Let's add some Rxjs into it. Yeah, HTTP 'T P Y. Client. I want a get method. Okay. And now I want to say, well, this is actually not the same as my DTO. Let me maybe do it like this. And then I have my response, which is of type product response array. And now I want to map it because it has different interface. So I say response, response, yeah, dot map. And then I say P like product. And then I say, all right, just map it. So ID will be the p.id. Name will be p.title, and price will be p.price. So this is a trivial example, obviously, but I hope it makes some points already. Yes, and then the final one is to add a URL, and the URL I just take from here. Okay, cool. So I should be getting now the service. So what I need to do next, when I look at my diagram, I want to get that into the state. State is like an application layer controlled thing. So let's go and create it. Yeah, I call it product state. And by the way, I'm doing this all without any NGRX. Here we go. I get my state. Let me inject my abstraction, not the actual implementation of HTTP service. Yes, that's it. Okay, cool. You see, normally now I could just make a function and output this gets all, but that would be pointless, right? The whole idea is so I can create a, the actual state in it, right? But one way to go about it is to create a subject in here. And a lot of people do that, but I don't like it because it's not very testable. I cannot really mock that dependency on the subject, and I have to, there is a whole conference we could make about it, but this is not the proper way. The proper way is actually keep it in the secondary ports and adapters. So what can I do? Well, I can create something called a context. A context is a state, really. In a lot of places, it's called state model. We call it context. A context will be a product context, and it will contain all products. So all DTOs. Someone is counting time. I think it's about 6 minutes of explanation so far. So what I'm having here is the context model, and then the state needs to communicate and get that context through the context port, and then it gets to the storage. So let's have a look at this. So let's create a context port. We call it product context port. I create both for the same one. So I'm going to show you an example. So here in the context, I have my context port with the injection token because it's an abstraction. So everything's so far so good. And then we add the method. And then in the method, I say, well, I would like to be able to set state. And when I set state, I want to have a context as a variable, and I want to say it's a product context. And then I want to make sure it's a void. So it sets the states, but it does not return any result. So that's pretty cool. So what I can do now is connect it with the storage, which is an actual class that will contain the state. It could be, I like to use the in-memory, but it could be local storage based, IndexedDB based, cookie based, whatever, you know. Product context, in-memory product context. Here we go. I believe this is again the configuration for my storage. Yeah, sorry, this should be service. Yeah, so where were we? Creating the storage. Normally, you wouldn't care about the configuration. It should be given to you, or you should get it from our website. At this time, actually, the documentation had some typo because we're migrating the versions. But normally, when it stabilizes, it's going to be all cool. In memory, product context. And everything is fine. We have it here. So what I want to do here, well, I'm in the secondary adapters, which means I'm no longer inside my application. So here I can contain the state. And since it's in memory, I have to do it somewhere. And this is the good place to do so. So what I can do is to add Rxjs property. I'm going to call it state. Oh, maybe not state. Let's call it data. And look, it asked me, do you want a subject or observable? I want a subject this time, and I want to choose replace subject. And what does it contain? The product context. Yeah, there is a bit of a glitch. That was fixed in the latest version, sorry. Okay, so now I have my subject. I want to do the buffer one. And then I don't like this to be public. It's because I want to like hide it from the outside world. And what I want to do now instead is to implement my context port. But actually, I know so if I have a set state, I also gonna need like select eventually. So let's just do that as well. So I want to have a select method which doesn't have arguments for now, and then it returns the product observable of the context port. Sorry, product context. So I go into my storage again, and now I want to implement it. So what I can do is implement product context, and boom, I have it. So all I have to do is to fill up the missing pieces. So there's so many ways to go about it, and I like to use observables, but this is not super important. Important is that it works. So okay, so we set the subject, and then in here we want to return this data dollar. Pretty much that's it. Okay, so this is the context. So what we have, so we have DTO, this and this. We also have context and storage. We could use events, but I'm not going to show you events in this presentation. It's pretty advanced topic. And then I have a state. So I need to inject that context and then make sure I have my left part done too. So I need the command port. Command port is through which you actually alter states. And then the query part is how to get the data out of the state. Let's first inject the missing thing into the state and check it out. It doesn't propose anymore the DTO port. Why? Because it's already selected. So it doesn't let you inject the same thing twice. So that's pretty cool as well. So we added here. We could maybe format it a little bit better. I don't know, my ID doesn't do that. Okay, so I have this. So all I have to do is to do the left part of my equation, which is commands and ports. So first of all, what I really need is a command. A command will say load all products. So I wanna call it in some sort of an init thing. And normally here I would pass on some things like maybe some criteria or how many products, the limit of the products, and so on. So maybe we can do that. So I can say limit, which is a number. Okay, so in my application ports primary this time, this was secondary. Now I go to the primary and I have my primary command. And I also want to do the port because the only way to communicate is through ports. So again, so again, bear with me. The whole idea here is to show you how fast code gets generated. About the soundness and other stuff we can actually discuss later. And on NG Poland, I'm going to show you more detailed architecture. So if you don't understand what I'm doing, that's totally fine. Just come to NG Poland. I'm going to explain you. So I want to have a load all products method. No parameter. Oh, sorry. It should be actually, yeah, it should be command. So I can also type it now. But it's a lot less. You see this thing, like, where is my command? You know, okay, it's here on top, but it's like so many other things that distract me. In Lowgular, I don't have this, so it's pretty cool. It's cooler, I would say. Okay, so prod cuts, small typo. Okay, so in order to do this, I need to now implement the state logic. And the state logic is pretty much, I have to implement that command port. Okay, everything is managed. And now in here, I need to do the magic. So I go in action. So what I want to do first, obviously I want Rxjs call. And what I want to do is I want to get all product. Obviously I need to fetch it from somewhere. And then once I have it, what I also want to do is to switch map. So I want to switch map to I'll have a product and I want to switch map to my context. Oh, sorry. And then I say the product context dot set state, and then it was an array with all and product. So that's pretty cool. Let me show it to you because it's probably not very visible. And I don't know what happened to preview today. It went on strike. Okay, and one more thing is I have this command, so maybe I could like pass on here the limit thing, but then I have to go ahead and just put it everywhere. For now, I'm just gonna skip it. Like, don't worry about it. I just showed you, you can actually pass it on here to get more context about what you're doing. Okay, so I need to call that method, load all products. Where do I do this? Well, normally I would go to my component, right? And do it in init and so on. But you see, in this architecture, the pages are decoupled from the primary adapters. So my component is really a reusable logic. I can put it maybe on one page, on another page, and I have no guarantee it will actually get executed. It does not, in this architecture, components do not have access to the router. It's the pages that do have access to the router. So what can I do? How can I solve that problem? Because this component can be shown in model or in page or whatever. So I need to use the resolver. How many of you actually use resolvers on a daily basis? Well, you should if you don't. So here we go. Let's create a resolver. And I'm pretty sure my configuration is also going to be off. What is the resolver name? Load. Oh, I can also do this case. And it's going to be fine. Oh, no. Okay, resolver worked. So here we go. Product resolver. It created a nice looking resolver with the voice and also the resolver module. So what I can do now is to, obviously, I want to inject first. What do I want to inject? The state? No, because it's a class. I need to inject the abstraction, so command port. Okay, that's great. And then what I can do is to make the Rxjs call. Here we go. Command port, load products. Okay, that shouldn't surprise you anymore, but I'm going to repeat it. Like, the return is added by default, and the subscribe is not because it's inside the observable context, and it's adding the load products. And because the load products returns the void, it does not map it to void. So it's also pretty cool. And the limit, let's just say 20. All righty then. So we have it. So the only thing left is to add resolver into the route, and actually we have it in the version you're going to download from marketplace. It's already there. You can pretty much right click and get add to route. I don't have it here. Sorry, I think I didn't update it. So I can go here and say resolve, and then I'm going to say the load product resolver. That's not going to work because I forgot about the module. Look how difficult it is. Load project resolver module. And you see, I would think, oh, it's already good, you know, it's already working. Well, not. I'll show you. It's not going to make a call, and it's actually going to show the error. Why? Because I did not use the Lowgular for it. Let me show it. Yeah, nothing works. You see, you probably saw this error many times. You see, I didn't use the Lowgular. I got penalized for it. I got, you know, a little whip in here. So why is that so? It's because when you look at the architecture, you see it's not only the resolver that is depending on this, but it's also the state and also the context and also the DTO. So I have to add all this manually. Look how painful it is. So state, product state, module, context, no, sorry, storage, in-memory context storage module, as well as HTTP product service module. You see, and only now it should work. It made the request. So you see, the resolver kicked in. It did all the magic. It called the endpoint and it stored it in memory storage. So it's in here. It's in the state. It's just that it's not visible because I didn't output it yet. But in general, you see how painful was it? If I used Lowgular, everything would be done for me. So I don't have to worry about it. That's pretty cool. So let's get to one of the last things. So let's just output it in a component. So we go with the create new, a component. Okay, I call it products list. Here we go. Okay, I have my component with the product list, all good. I need to inject my, oh, sorry. Yeah, so I need to create, the last missing part is this interface, the query interface. So I can set the state from the left to the right, but now I need to fetch the data and I do it through the query. So let's just add the query. So it's taken from the command query principle. And now, yeah, so I call it the product query. And now let's do a little twist. So I don't need IDs, really. What I need is price. Let's just say I just want to show price, but it's going to be a string. It's not going to be a number. And also the name of the product. So because, you know, the numbers are weirdly calculated and, you know, business wants me to actually add, I'll show it to you. So the query is configured a little bit differently. So it's query. So it's a class because it's not called data structure, it's called an object. An object is self-encapsulated. So you should not output a lot of things outside. So I can put a little bit logic here. So what I can do is I can make this one private and I can say price. And let's say it's gonna be the number, the one that comes as a DTO. And now look what I can do. I can make a public read-only price, which is a string. And then in here, I can make a bit of a logic that will do this for me. So what I can do is I can say it's gonna be dollars and it's gonna be this dot price. And, you know, I could do some rounding, or I could say about, or I could also do things like this in some currencies. Yeah, I can use pipes, of course, but the pipes also tend to become, like, this is a very simple example, but, you know, in more advanced cases, when I don't have a just list, maybe I have a tables, or maybe I have graphs or trees or accordions, you know, you want to remap it differently. So you don't want to plug in your data model into your templates because it gets very fast with tons of ifs. So that's why you want to remap it to some sort of an object like this. So this is just a simple, silly example. And then last missing piece, context. Oh, sorry, not context, query port. even with mistakes, I do it pretty fast. So query part. Okay, it's gets all products query. All right, here we go. Gets all products. I want to add the method. Get all, no parameters. And thank you for giving me that option. Okay, cool. So that's pretty cool. Experience is so far so good. So I need to implement that in my state. Implement. Yes, please. Also, one thing it really does, it also organizes your JavaScript file, TypeScript file. So the properties go above the constructor. The constructor is here and then the method. So that's also pretty handy. So let me do some actions here. What can I do? What can I do? Well, I can do the Rxjs call. We're almost there, my friend. So obviously, I don't want to call the get all again. This is why I store it in the state at the first place. So what I want to do is to do the context part, and then I want to say select. And once I have it here, which is pretty cool, I want to map it. So I want to map it from the context to product query array. So what I can do is to say, for every product map, let's call it DTO, let's map into the new product query. And then the first one is the DTO dot price, and the second one is DTO dot name. Okay, I got this. I have my my method, and it's reactive because it's using the subject under the hood. So let's go to the component and inject all I need to do. Bang, 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 bang. Okay, inject. Then we say get all product query port. Yes, please. And now I need to do the Rxjs property because it's a property of Rxjs. I'm going to call it products. And it's not a subject, it's observable. And it's this guy, get all, yes, please. And we have it. Okay, the last thing is to go and add the template page. So add HTML products. Maybe I'm gonna do, well, actually, maybe chip list. Okay, that's silly. That's really silly to do so, but hey, we are silly sometimes. And let's just do the pricing. Everything should be working, right? I mean, this is what I promised you guys. So the only last piece missing is to add this component inside the page. And if you look in the coding standards, right on top, you see it says the component can inject, the page can inject component through HTML. So let's just go in into my app, to my page, and say, okay, added dude. Oh, add component option appeared because it's configurable. Okay, let's just see which component. Obviously, it gets some root, which is silly, and then lib product list. Now it's doing all the stuff I've been writing before. You remember with the resolver, right? And it's adding this thing. And let's just add a bit of HTML, which is like hello products chips. Okay, and then let's see. Yes, it added all this stuff. I told you. Okay, let's see if it's working. And it is working. It's working. Isn't that cool? And all in 19 minutes, by the way, my favorite number. Isn't that cool? So, is it fast? I'd say, hell yeah, it's fast. If you look at the Git status, It's not very visible in here. I believe it's in here. So look at this unversion files. Look at how many of them are here. Look at this. Would you create that in 19 minutes at your work? I don't think so. I challenge, I dare everyone who thinks he could do it. I mean, it's impossible. And look, I did not focus on the Angular. I mean, it's a great framework, but it's just, I did not focus on it. I just let the Lowgular to do all the magic for me and focus on the most important part. How do I connect the data, the architecture? Where should I place what? I just, look at this diagram. Obviously, this is a very advanced example. Let's just keep it simple, But generally, the point is, generate all this in 19 minutes of the time, and it's working from the first go. That's the cool part. So yeah, please let me know what you guys think. It's super valuable. Please, please, please write things on the YouTube chat. And yeah, again, I repeat myself, but I cannot stress it enough. Please make sure you buy the Inject Component ticket. You can also watch it online. I believe so. Darius will correct me if I'm wrong. And make sure that you're there and you see Hexagon in action. I'm gonna talk in more detail. So what is it here is, it was very fast because that was the exercise, but yeah, I hope you really enjoyed it. That would be really it for me for today. I hope to see you on Inject Poland. Be there or be square.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. It was amazing. It was just amazing. So yeah, no words. I really like it. I really like it.
Yeah.
By the way, your camera is
yes. Sorry, I have this not so good camera, so it disabled in the middle. But I was in the middle of things, so I didn't understand. Okay. But yeah, it's me.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Yes, please, guys, ask. Yeah, I know the videos.
I also need to watch this video one more time. Yeah, it is amazing.
Really great. The indent and model for developer to stay in the time. Yeah, great.
What happens when you have too much stuff for a given context? It has scroll.
Yeah. So as soon as I shown, like it has a search and it has a scroll. So we can scroll down to the bottom of the list, or you can search for the stuff you want. So it's pretty contextual. Yeah. So, but bear in mind, like this is Hexagon architecture. It's the most advanced stuff I've worked with. So that's why it's quite a lot. But in most of the cases, 90% of the times, it would be pretty straightforward because the menu is contextual. So it depends where you click and in what file you are. So it limits the options as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Any other questions? It's matter where you make a right click on the project, on structure to create new model service, etc. Or it's no matter.
Actually, the power of it is that it doesn't matter. It can fast figure it out, and if it doesn't, it will ask you where you want to do it. So this is the power of it, because normally we would, if we allow it to create it anywhere, it means you introduce chaos in your architecture, right? So it actually puts things in the right place the way you configured it. So that's a feature, not a bug.
can we configure plugin to create new directory for every services component?
Yeah, so you can use the $name token, and then it will actually also use the stuff you typed in. So yes, you can put it any way you want.
Do I need a right click or can I use a keyboard shortcut?
You can use a keyboard shortcut. So it's Ctrl+Shift+D in the project if you want to create new, and it's Ctrl+Shift+X in the editor. So yeah, you can use the shortcuts too. And actually, I didn't use the shortcut, even though I'm super used to them, because I wanted to like repeat the easy steps first.
Amazing, amazing. Do we have more questions? Okay, if not, thank you so much, Grzegorz. It was just great.
Thank you very much.
I really like this tool, and yeah, finger crossed. Yes, for this tool, and yeah, it's just amazing.
Thank you very much. It means a lot.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for coming also. I think we have one more question.
Yeah. Can we plug in create test files?
So the answer is not yet. And this is like one of the most important features, actually. Actually, we had the previous plugin, which you can also download from VS Code, which is called Lowgular Hexagon. You can download it from the marketplace, and it has tests in there. It's just like an alpha stage, just to kickstart. And we're gonna move after the Inject Component. We're gonna move towards the testing as well, because it's one of the most requested features. And yes, Lowgular makes testing easy for you as well.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. It was a long session, but very, very intensive, and I think very, very cool. So thank you so much. Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Damian, Azeon, if I good pronunciate this, Michał, Anna, yeah, Carolina, Philip. Thank you so much for being with us. And yeah, see you on NG Poland and on next meetup also. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.